evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Monday night. It's the same thing me and Mark ask every Monday night, except tonight we're dressed like traffic lights. What's going on, Mark? What's going on with you?
Oh man, yes, absolutely. We've come dressed as traffic lights. That's a good start. What's going on? I'm busy trying to work out how on earth Chelsea are getting round FFP, but that's for another podcast, I think.
That was Jesus Christ, but we need the Rain Man in for that one, mate. Never mind the stat man. I've never met a more bunch of corrupt bastards in my life than Chelsea. The way they're playing that game, mate. Jesus fucking Christ. We'll get stuck into them, I'm sure, because we are talking a little bit about a Chelsea player, I think, in the next few minutes. But just before we do, a little bit of a reminder: if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. We're on 2,480 right now, so we're really close to 2,500. All free content with us. Don't charge anybody a penny for that. Everyone's ripping your eyes out already these days. Why should we do it as well? So it's all free just to listen to Newcastle United chat on the channel with me and the green traffic light here. I say stop, he says go. Loads of these jokes tonight. But we'll get stuck into everything Newcastle in a minute. We are live as well, so please jump in the comments. Big shout out to old Angry Noob Gamer, who was here for ages. He was here before we were. BT is in the house. Ash is here as well. Ian is also here, spreading the love in the comments. And we also have the new monkey as well. Yeah, we're late, lads. I know. Do you know, my clock is all fucked up. I said my clock's fucked up. The time is wrong. And Mark is in a different time zone to me as well, mate. But we'll try our best to get here on time. And Gibbo is also in the house as well. And yeah, I think that's all that for the how do you do. So let's get stuck in there, Mark. So the first thing I think we want to talk about is our new signing. So Anthony Gordon, the lad who has split opinion amongst the fan base, has done all his little media training. And to be honest, mate, I was quite impressed with how he come across. I thought he played it really well. What was your take on it, mate?
Yeah, I think it was always going to be the case. He's not going to come in and say the wrong things. He's drilled in that, isn't he, when he comes in? But you know, he's come in, he's taken the time with fans every time where we've seen he's stopped. He's even the kid in JD Sports, wasn't it, that took the selfie with him and as he'd come in to buy something, and like he's done the right things. He said the right stuff. He looks like he's ready to come in and make an impact now. It's yes, there've been question marks about it, but he's a 21-year-old lad. He's got bags of potential. We talked about this the other day. He will come in. He does a lot of the graft. He will work damn hard. He's got quality going forward. I just think he fits the bill perfectly for what Newcastle are doing now.
No, absolutely. It must be a really refreshing change for him to be chased for photographs in the Metro Centre rather than chased in his Range Rover up the street by a bunch of Scousers who are still moaning like fuck on Twitter Spaces as we speak about how much they hate Anthony Gordon. But I must admit, I really enjoyed his whole media unveiling. I thought he come across really well. I love the way that he played up to the little scrap that he had with Trippier and Shaw. And what was brilliant, it's on YouTube. If you haven't watched it, check it out. Obviously behind the scenes bit. So he comes in to see Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe is, typical Eddie Howe, dead, articulate and says, have a seat, really impressed with you, watched you for ages, all that. He then leaves him with Tyndall, and Tyndall walks in the room with Trippier and goes, hey, he wants to finish that fight with you. which I think's brilliant. It just shows you what a lovable shithouse Jason Tyndall is, really. But then he comes over to Shaw, who's on the other side, and gives him a handshake and starts smiling. And I think you can hear Gordon say to Shaw, oh, you can look after me now. As opposed to looking after Trippier. But I thought it was really good.
That first training session will be interesting, won't it? That's going to be a good laugh. I mean, they're not going to do anything stupid, but I can imagine them pulling a few tricks on him.
Absolutely. But to be fair, like I say, he's handled it really, really well. There was a little bit on the club TikTok account as well when they had the video of the scrap next to it. And he was pulling funny faces, which people have just performed absolute internet magician skills on, and they've had him looking at Greg's, they've had him looking at the league table, and just honestly, fucking superb. That's where the internet wins with stuff like that. Asher said he thought he spoke really well. John Murdoch's in the comments saying Chelsea corrupt. I didn't spot that one. Well, that's debatable, mate. Being Chelsea, but we won't put up any more of them comments. So we've also got John in the comments saying, do you think that with Leicester signing 2, yes, Madison, we'll come on to who's next in a minute, John, but I'm starting to feel a little bit worried about the Madison one. I must be honest with you. So the new monkey tapes, Tunez is saying, I think it'll be class under the guidance and coaching of Eddie. He's young, no longer in a toxic environment, no pressure on him being the best player. I can see him thriving. Mark, we talked a little bit about this on our video just before it was all official. I mean, in the midst of all this Gordon Paul, forget that he had a Barney with Trippier and Shaw, right? Outside of that, he's lightning quick. He's dangerous in the attacking third. He can play right across the middle three and can play either wing. Eddie was asked in his press conference where he's been playing, and he said, I see him on either wing. And he talked a lot about his attributes in terms of his desire, his hunger, his athleticism. That was something you touched on, mate, wasn't it, in terms of how much he can track back as well. So I think he's tailor-made for the way we play, mate.
Absolutely. It's all about work rate. At the moment, this is the way that Newcastle are drilled. It's all about the effort. It's all about what you can do for the team. There's no show ponies. It's all about, if you need to, you come back, you come and help out in defence. And we've seen when we did that video the other day, you looked at his defensive stats and they're exceptional. I think the ones from the previous season, when you look at things like his pressing stats, they're in the high percentiles there as well. So he works damn hard. But you touched on it. He's lightning quick. He's good from set pieces. He can put a ball in. He can finish. I think for the 21s, he looked tidy in the air as well, coming in from the left hand side to meet crosses from the right. So, look, he's got a long way to go. He's nowhere near the finished article, but he's got a hell of a tutor now.
Absolutely, Ian's bang on the money there about the masterclass in PR and marketing under the new ownership. They've been absolutely class with everything the way they've done, Ian. You're absolutely right. There's a great video as well of him sitting in the new canteen, which looks absolutely class as well, compared to the old canteen that looked like a service station kind of scruffy, moto kind of sitting there. But it looks brilliant now. And I actually had him sitting watching a little video of history of the club, and there was bits about the fans, bits about Eddie, the Tyne Bridge, and you could see him smiling and stuff with Dan Ashworth. And I thought, this is class, man. This is a proper club now, the way we induct players, rather than just, like under Mike Ashley years when they go, dump your boots there, there's the shitter, there's the kettle, see you later kind of a thing. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's much better now under this new ownership. Yeah, Tiffany saying why Everton fans complain about him leaving when that's what they were chanting for in his car. It's just because they're weirdos, really, mate. Mark, just quickly on Everton. I know we're not an Everton podcast, but
although we once got accused of being an Everton podcast.
Did we really get accused of being an Everton podcast?
Because the name was Evermore. Somebody saw the comments about, I'm sure it was your tweet about Chris Wood, about it was Maxi and Chris Wood from that towards the end of last season, and somebody commented and went, well, look at their name, they're just an Everton podcast. Forget all the black and white stuff all over the images and things, but well done for your observations.
So somebody should have went to Specsavers then. Yeah, actually, no blue tops here. No blue tops here. But John's also saying, do you think Fraser could join Everton? So this ties in kind of quite nicely as well. Sean Dyche has gone in there. I like Sean Dyche, for what it's worth. I think he's actually quite underrated as a manager. I think he's very effective. He maybe needs a bit like Eddie, kind of from the Bournemouth thing. He needs a bit of a new challenge and everything else. Toffee more toffee, Roger, more toffee. And I think Sean Dyche, I don't know, mate. Do you think you'll keep them up? I mean, I think potentially they've certainly got a better chance with him than Bielsa. And in terms of Fraser, can you see Fraser going down there? I could see that move happening, mate.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think possibly. I think he definitely gets game time. I just think it's a hell of a struggle for them, because you've seen some of the shifts that some of the teams down there are starting to make. Leeds are looking better. Forest look better. I think the obvious ones at the moment are obviously Southampton, although they seem to have picked up their performances of late. Hopefully for Newcastle, not tomorrow night. But Everton are right deep in it, and they're going to struggle to put together a run to get out of that situation. I'm not sure what's Sean Dyche's win percentage like. What was it like?
I don't know. I think it was tainted towards the back end of his shady Burnley time. While you're looking at that, just a couple of comments there. Old angry game, noob gamer. It's a mouthful, that, mate. A mouthful of noob. He said, Shah said apparently that you can stick up for me. And Shaw said you got to earn that, which I think is class. I love
Too
that.
right.
And I love the mischievous one from Monkey here. Gordon winner in April to send Everton down. Oh, mate. Get to the bookies on that, mate. That's quality.
He won't be allowed back anywhere near Liverpool after that. Could
you imagine that? Could you imagine the spaces that night? He fucking hates him. He's a fucking stupid little fuck. They'll be absolutely seething, which is
what was
quality.
What was that accent?
Well, I've got a red top on, so that was like Stephen. I was dumbing it down. I was dumbing it down a bit, mate. You fucking prick. Go on, let's see your Scouse accent. I bet it's not as good as
No,
mine.
You're all right. I can't do that. I can't do a Scouse.
Don't challenge. We've got a comment there from Stephen saying, even lads, I've kept quiet, but I think it's a very good move. More shithousery, so big thumbs up. Absolutely, yeah. I think he's, we've talked about the Bellamy vibes, Mark, haven't we? Lee mentioned it as well. I think if he, winds another player up, gets him sent off, wins as a free kick or whatever, Trippier puts it over the wall, top bins, we'll absolutely love this kid. We won't give a monkeys that he's, he's winding people up because he'll be a half player. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, mate, I'm looking forward to his debut against West Ham. I don't think he'll come in from the start. I'd be shocked at that unless he's amazing in training. So I think he'll come off the bench, but it gives us options, mate, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You start to see the strength now. And we talked the one thing we've spoken about all season long is the strength and depth. And, you bring him in. Obviously, Ashby looks to be just about through the door too. If one more comes through, that suddenly that the depth in that squad is much, much better. It might only be a couple of players, but a couple of players in sort of key areas. You look wide and you just go, well, we've said all along that you were really limited. Fraser's not going to give you great amount of output from wide. He works hard. That's fair. Almiron's been on fire, but he's having a dip in his sort of outputs at the moment. So Maximum is hit and miss. And you're playing Willock and Joe Linton, which I think works very, very well in terms of those two on that left-hand side. You can sort of switch those out. But he gives you another option, and he can play either side. And he's done that for Everton over the last couple of seasons. He's played left, he's played right, he's played through the middle. So he can give you options right across.
Absolutely. Little reminder from BT when that game's on as well, which will be absolutely quality. I can't wait for that game. I really can't. But yeah, it's the comment there from Gibbo. I've just seen a comment from Gibbo, so might as well get into that. So yeah, so with one in, we said Ashby's obviously done and dusted by the sound of it. Now he's done his medical, £3 million, great bit of business that, two players under 22 years of age want to cover. Trippier, I think, for the future. Obviously, Gordon's for the present. But one has left, one of the old stalwarts. He's been here for 7 years, Jonjo Shelvey. And now, whatever you think about Jonjo Shelvey, at times in a black and white shirt, he's been immense. When we signed him, obviously we signed him and Townsend in the same window. I was buzzing. I thought that was two great signings from McLaren. It's just a shame that it was McLaren that signed them, because we were so far adrift then. But Shelby stuck with us. Fair play to him. He looked so good in that championship, Mark, didn't he? He was unplayable in that championship. But great range of passing. Frustrated at times, probably didn't do everything he could have done. But I think certainly under Rafa at spells, and certainly under Eddie Howe since he come in, we've seen a really good side of Jonjo. So it's a shame to see him go, mate. But as I wrote on my piece for the blog, I don't think the pressing style in Newcastle currently suits Jonjo Shelvey's game anyway, mate, does it?
No. He's a little out of his depth. Look, he performed very, very well last season in the games, obviously, that he played, and he's done a great job in the 7 years that he's been at the club. He come in. He had a bit of a reputation as being a hothead, and we talked about an awful lot that he was a walking yellow card.
He was at times, yeah.
And he was only a step away from getting a red card because he does like to throw himself into challenges. In fairness, since Eddie came in, that sort of disappeared. He was a lot more level-headed, but he just doesn't suit. His style of play, you're wanting that work rate and you're wanting that running constantly. He's just not that sort of midfielder. But you have to go, do you know what? Thank you, because he's done an exceptional job over the last 7 years through a time where Newcastle were at their lowest ebb in a long time. He came in, he stayed, he performed very, very well throughout. Really, he does get a lot of grief, but he's played 202 games. So his total for Newcastle, 202 games, 171 starts, 18 goals, 23 assists. The numbers over the last couple of seasons have obviously dropped away as he's moved out of the site, and obviously injuries have hit. But he's done an admirable job for the club, and you can't do anything but just go, thanks for putting the effort in for 7 seasons basically.
Yeah, I mean, there was times I think he was unlucky not to be in the England setup. There was, I think, on his day with Jonjo, there's no player, certainly no English midfielder in the league that can do what he does, spray that pass like he does, be as accurate as he is with it. And I think he's been unlucky as well over the years. He's had some, some good strikers in little bits, and he's had some ropey strikers and other bits to try and feed the ball through. He spent a lot of time defending when he probably should have been pushing forward. But listen, as you say, Mark, I think Jonjo Shelvey will be fondly thought of in terms of in years to come as a Newcastle United former player. He won't worry too much for a pint when he comes back up the road and talking and stuff like that. And I think that everybody will everybody be thankful for the job that he did. But I think the side has definitely evolved away from him, and I suppose it does take us into that next question really of who's next. And we mentioned Ashby's already in the bag, so he's signed, sealed, and delivered, as old Stevie would say. And I think we had a comment there from the new monkey. And I've just moved my mouse there because you mentioned to me it was rather loud, so I've just moved my mouse there. There we go. So, New Monkey said he thinks that West Ham have made a huge mistake letting Ashby go. The lad looks real quality, and 3 million's a bargain. We did a rumour has it, I think, on the kid. We mentioned him. We've only looked at clips really from the under 21s, but he's, and I think, is it Kev from the Stat Bomb shared some interesting insights on this the other day on Twitter. And Kev's a great guy, always tweets some quality stuff. And he was pointing out Ashby's positional sense in terms of his defensive qualities and his ability to get forward and the way he puts the ball in. And he does look very Trippier-esque already. So to learn under the main man for probably the next 2 seasons when Trippier's new contract comes to an end, I think at £3 million, we've done a good bit of business there, Mark. And with the West Ham fans being a bit pissed, I think that shows we've probably done a good job, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think there's not a lot of data from, and I think it's Kev Lawson, isn't it?
Kev Lawson, that's it. Yeah.
That does that put the sort of the tweet out with the information. There's not an awful lot of data about him. He hasn't played an awful lot of first team games, but the position you see him play for the 21s and stuff, he plays very high. It's very much he's very much Trippier-esque in that regard. He's got good delivery. The lad can hit a free kick too.
Which is handy.
There was somebody popped one in. I think it might have been Kev as well. So proper top bins free kick. It was exceptional. But he has got quality. It's odd that he hasn't had a chance at West Ham when you consider the players that are ahead of him in that position.
Yeah.
If he, you questioning a little bit, and I don't mean to, but if he's as good as we think, why has he not got ahead? My only thinking in that regard is that he's made it known to Moyes that he's going. He doesn't plan on signing a new deal, and therefore at that point, David Moyes goes, "Well, I'm not going to further your development. You can play in the 21s. We'll look to make some money out of you, or you'll go in the summer." If I've got a player that's not invested in the team for me, I'm not going to play him. I understand that. But this is another player that Newcastle have identified long term. This isn't one that's just come out of the woodwork. This is one that we talked about last summer. Like when you look back at it, like Gordon, this was talked about 6 months, a year ago as being an option. So they're identifying their targets and they're being patient. They're waiting to get them, by the looks of things, at the right sort of price. So it's not. it looks like they've really got the idea that, you know, he can work, he can stay and sit behind Trippier, he can learn from him. He's a hell of a teacher. And like you said, we're having Eddie Howe there, you know, you've got a hell of a manager to learn from in that regard too. But if your game is Trippier-esque, who better to learn from than the man himself?
Well, no, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. As Monkey said there, you know, he's learning from the very best. In terms of his contract length, actually, I'm not too sure, Mark. Is it a 5-year deal or a 3-year deal? I'm trying to remember what it was. I'm not sure if they've stipulated.
I don't think they have. I think it was just a case of it was medical with terms had been agreed. I guess we'll find out as and when they come.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Ash is saying there, the West Ham fans aren't happy at all. Ian saying he looks class. Trips Junior, very much so. I think there's a lot of similarities there. Sean saying expects Manquillo to go tomorrow. Yeah, I could see Mankey going because I think he's probably not going to get back in that team now. With I think Emil Kraft's on his way back, isn't he? You know, with Ashby signing as well. You know, somebody asked me about Murphy way up there. I don't think Murphy will go. We'll probably get stuck into some midfielders in a minute, but I don't think Murphy will go. Like Murphy will stay just for his energy and his running, really. Lacks a lot of quality, but I think he puts the work rate in, and I don't think anyone will fucking buy him either. So that's probably the main reason why he'll probably stay, to be fair.
Southampton will want him.
Maybe. I tell you what, Southampton apparently are trying to sign Moussa Dembele from Lyon for €3 million. That's a fucking bargain, that is.
Well, he's out of contract in the summer. I mean, he's fallen well out of favour.
I hope they don't sign him. Well, he won't play. He won't play tomorrow. Thank God.
No, I mean, $3 million seems an exceptional deal. Yes, his wages are going to be high, but he's saving a fortune in transfer fee. I'm amazed there's not more Premier League sides that have gone for him.
He's a proper goal scorer. You know, Southampton get him, they might have a real good chance of getting out of shit they're in. Tooney Rush is saying he's shocked to see Jonjo go. Yeah, and Boston the bench in his head when he gets back from injury. Now there's only Anderson, and I think he prefers the left wing. Yeah, we'll get into that in a second, Leroy. I do think plans are afoot to sort this out. And then Ash is saying this has got Dan Ashworth written all over it, 100%. Geordie Jack is saying many West Ham youngsters leaving because Moyes isn't giving them opportunities to develop. Interesting that West Ham have always had a really good academy, Mark, haven't they? If you go right back, you know, I suppose in our lifetime, you know, the Defoes, the Carricks, the Coles, you know, the Lampards, Rio Ferdinand, you know, they've always had a really good setup there. But if Moyes isn't using them, then that's not the West Ham way either, is it? So the fans won't be happy because they like to see players coming through, don't they?
I don't even know what the West Ham way is anymore.
I don't think they know what the West Ham way is.
I think the West Ham way is about 60 years old, so it hasn't been the West Ham way for about 2 generations. I think we can forget about what that is, and it's just whatever the new manager does now. It's becomes a ridiculous saying, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, mate, absolutely. Any news on Savage? Yeah, I don't think that one's going to happen this window, John. I'd be shocked if it does. That kind of a deal is a big, big deal, and I don't think we'll get that one done. But I suppose looking at ones that may get done, Mark. I mean, somebody asked about Maddison up there before. I'm not sure Maddison will happen this window. You've been saying this all along. I was hoping, I was clicking me little black and white heels together and hoping that would get Maddison over the line. There's no place like St James's Park, James.
Dorothy.
Yeah, exactly. But it didn't work. Didn't happen. I think the way Leicester are now, I think him and Tielemans have both declined contract extensions. I don't think they'll sell him tomorrow because the size of the players that they are, I think negotiations would have opened up way before that. So I think they'll probably both stay at Leicester till the summer. Tielemans will go for sweet FA. Maddison will go for a fraction of the price. But one player that would be linked to quite a lot, and it does seem to be growing, is Conor Gallagher on loan from Chelsea. Now, Chelsea have just agreed the fee for, is it Edison? Enzo Fernandez. That's it. Enzo Fernandez, yeah, who's an unbelievable player. But I think that's the kind of the domino effect, isn't it, for the likes of Gallagher to go? Apparently, he doesn't want to go to Everton, funny enough. Maybe he's heard the spaces. Doesn't want to go to Everton. So it was Palace and Newcastle with the other two parties. Can you see Conor Gallagher in a black and white shirt, mate? And if so, is that a good sign?
Well, I mean, yes, you could see that. Chelsea need to lighten their squad. I mean, they've got about 80 players in their squad at the moment. So, Christ almighty, they're gonna have to get rid of one or two. The difficulty they're going to have, and we talked about this in our chat earlier on, is that teams know they're going to have to sell. They know they're going to have to move players on. Nobody's going to give them the going rate because they know they're going to be desperate. Somebody put a message on social media earlier on that the way that it looks like in terms of the amount that Chelsea have spent, that it's something like 40-something million a season that they're going to have in terms or that's going towards the players that they've signed this window. So it's 21 million a transfer per transfer window that will carry over for the next 8 years. So they're going to have to, to shift some players on because they're just not going to be able to continue. And if they miss out on Champions League this season and next season, they are absolutely fucked. Because they will struggle, and they'll struggle to sell some of those players on as well for what they want, because the length of contract is ridiculous, and they're just not going to be able to shift these players on because they'll be on mega wages and they're long-term contracts. They're not going to want to give that up in a hurry. And then the problem that that Chelsea will have is the players that they've got as fringe players that they'll probably see now is clubs know that they're going to want to sell them. They're not going to give them the going rate. So if Chelsea want 50 million for Conor Gallagher, for example, nobody's going to give them anywhere close. They're going to be looking at 25 to 30 million because they know they're going to have the club over a barrel for them. So they are going to struggle in that regard, but they're going to have to start getting rid of some. I think there was a report earlier that Ziyech might be off to PSG.
Didn't see that.
The likely ones you probably see Conor, especially if Fernandes comes in, that Conor Gallagher will probably move. I think I nearly said Calvert-Lewin. No, Loftus-Cheek will be the next one to go.
Left ass cheek.
I need to remember that because that's the way.
I'll never forget it.
But they're the two obvious ones that you look to move on. Lukaku will be their other one probably to move on in the summer as well, and that's been the shittest deal I think I've ever seen a football club make. Sign him for nearly 100 million. I think they've got 6.7 million for him for a season-long loan this season, and potentially then to do it again. And I think they're probably paying a chunk of his wages too. It's just an awful, awful deal.
Spurs might buy him if Kane fucks off. That might happen. If Kane fucks off the Man United, Spurs might buy him as a replacement. But potentially, but just look at some of the comments there. Tifoli thinks Chelsea won't want to deal with us, as does Ash. Which I can kind of understand that, but they might have no choice, as we've just been talking about there. Roger would take Gallagher, but is that another 40 million for our FFP? He won't like. I think if we sign him on loan with an option of buying in the summer, then hopefully if we get Champions League money, then we'll probably be okay. Jordan Jackson, he's not sure he would take Gallagher if he doesn't really want to be here. I think from what I'm reading is that he would go to Newcastle. Newcastle's the only place he would go to, I think, from what I'm gathering. It sounds a bit arrogant, him saying, I want a top 6 club, and he's been playing, for a mid-table side. But, I kind of get why he's saying that, because he doesn't want to take a step back, so to speak. But it isn't going well for him at the minute. So, if you've got a chance to go and play for an unbelievable manager like Eddie Howe, who gets the best out of players, then fucking hell, Conor Gallagher, get yourself there. You'll get back that Crystal Palace form and got you the England team, mate. Just a no-brainer for me, man.
Well, this is it. We're only, 8 months removed from when he was in blistering form for Palace. And he was excellent, and he's shown glimpses of it, but he's just not been consistent enough. He's playing in it, again, we'll come back to, he's playing in a side that hasn't been particularly good this season. Is it arrogance for him to want to move to a club in the top 6? I'm not sure. I think his skills suggest that he can play at that level, and that's the next step that he wants to take. I think if Newcastle is the one he wants to go to, that's fine. I think he comes in, he just gives you another massive option in that midfield. You can alternate between the likes of him and Longstaff depending on the game and the situation in the game too. I just think he just gives you another really, really good option and bolsters that. We'll come back to those words, strength in depth again.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it gives you more than Longstaff. I was saying this to a mate of mine earlier, that if you think about the positions that both Longstaff and Willock have found themselves in recent weeks, where they've fluffed their lines, Conor Gallagher puts that away, in my opinion. I think he's a better finisher. He's better in front of goal. We've even seen that for Chelsea, despite him being a bit iffy. He scored some goals for them. So if he's a player that can get into those positions, then fucking, why not? Let's get the deal done, mate. But I think a lot of our business, I think big business is probably going to have to wait till the summer now. I'd say, Mark, I can't see anybody massive coming in. I would be buzzing if Maddison rocks up in a black and white shirt tomorrow, but I just don't think it's going to happen, especially with the build-up to the game, which we'll talk about in a minute. The build-up to the game there, everybody would be thrown into the game. I think if we were going to make any moves for a player like James Maddison, the size of that signing, I think we would have had the noise about it already by now.
Yeah, I think certainly if someone that play, I don't think you're leaving till the very last minute.
Yeah.
I think the one that has been sort of rumoured, and it come across the last 24 hours, is Sander Berge from Sheffield United.
That's another player. Yeah, we're talking about which fits into the deep line midfielder Sean's just been talking about there as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure you class him as a playmaker. He's very much a carrier of the ball. He moves with the ball very well. He can pass, but to be fair, he's got a lot of goal involvement, albeit in the Championship the last couple of seasons. But he is sought after. There've been reports today that Liverpool have been looking at him. Other clubs have been considering a move for him. And I think he would come in, and again, it's about depth. But I think he could come in and play that central role and free up Bruno to get a little bit further forward. He can get forward himself. He can play that defensive midfield role. He's big. He's good in the air. He's another one that's 6 foot plus. But he is good with his feet. He, like I said, he moves with the ball very, very well. He can get you forward. He can get you goals. He gets you assists. I know it's not the most attractive of signing, but he was highly sought after before he went to Sheffield United, and there's still a player in there. He's 24, bags of time ahead of him, and again coming into that midfield where he's playing alongside the likes of Bruno, I think it would be excellent.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I was a bit unsure about a kid from the Championship, but he definitely has some, good traits and good qualities. And as you say, surround him with better players, you might see the best out of him. Mark is saying that he's heard a few things that Gallagher's really close to his mum, and he won't leave London. I don't know how true that is. I could see that being a young player, Mark. So maybe you're right, man. There might be a little bit of truth in that. BT saying, Eddie said if Shelby's gone, he wants to look for somebody to replace him. I definitely think we'll try and get somebody in to replace him. And Sean's saying about, I think, Sander Berge, that rumours of Fulham are putting a 20 million offer. Mark, is it right? Sheffield United want a bit more than that, though. Is that right? Is he 6'5"?
Yeah, he's a
big
unit.
Wow,
he's an absolute
big
unit.
lad. Can he head the ball though? Because we've got guys who are 6'7" who can't head the fucking ball to save their life in the box. So
I think he's one of those that's 6'5" and can jump, as opposed to Peter Crouch, who's 6'6" and used to jump.
I was thinking about Dan Burn and he attacking third, mate. Never mind Peter Crouch. I was thinking about Dan Burn at corners.
Yeah, but Dan Burn can skin people in the box and hit them in right footed. So you're all right with him. But no, he's a unit. In terms of the Fulham thing, I think the report was that Fulham were willing to pay 20 million. However, their initial it wasn't all in one go. Newcastle were willing to give them more money, or that their initial fee or their initial amount that they were prepared to pay was more. And obviously with Sheffield United's transfer embargo, this would, I think, bring them out of that. So Newcastle's money up front would do them better than Fulham's outright purchase if Newcastle were to bring him in on loan for the rest of the season, and then with the purchase from the summer.
Which is what Gib was saying there. Yeah.
Exactly right. But I think the way that it was structured meant that they would get more money from Newcastle sort of first thing, which would help them massively in terms of their transfer embargo. Again, this is all stuff that I've read off the internet, and therefore could be complete and utter bollocks. But there were multiple sort of places that were saying things like that. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility, I think. But they may look to offload permanently now rather than wait. Defensive stats, they're not. I'm not going to lie to you, they're not brilliant. I did start to look at them earlier. Let me just try and find where I hid them.
See if you can find them. But I'll get a couple of comments up. But Chrissy thinks Madison's already coming up.
Bear in mind, he's been playing in the Championship and he's playing in a side at the top of the Championship, so his defensive stats aren't going to be sort of noticeable in that regard. If you look at his tackles, and this is based across the men's next 8 competitions, so Eredivisie, Championship, I think the Brazilian Premier League, leagues like that. He sits in, like, for tackles, he's in the 14th percentile. Interceptions, he's in the bottom 1%. However, he does a lot going forward. So
he pass a good ball. I've seen some clips of him. He's got a great passing range on him. Very Shelby-esque. Yeah.
So he sits sort of middle of the road in terms of final third passes, in terms of through balls, key passes, that sort of thing. But again, he's not playing at that Premier League level. I'm just trying to find. If you give us 2 seconds,
that's all right.
I'm trying to find his last Premier League stats, because actually I didn't look at those.
We will come back to it. Look what you've done, Roger. He's in stat mode. He's in stat mode now. I'm going to read you the comments because he'll be just beavering away all night there. So Jack's saying, do we think there's anything to talk about us trying again for Franca? We do seem to be apparently putting bids in, as Gibbo says there, a £20 million bid knocked back for Franca. I think a lot of these kids, and you referenced it before, guys, is that Dan Ashworth obviously has this hit list of this young talent that he's probably scoured the world for. When he was at Brighton, and now he's moved to Newcastle, he's just taken his list with him, and he said, right, let's get these guys, let's go and get these guys. And he's obviously spoke to the scouting network, and they've looked at the tapes, they probably went to see the kids in person and everything else. And Franca's probably one of those for the future, but I think, I don't think we'll go any higher. I think this Newcastle United doesn't like to be bullied by people. So if they think that Flamengo are taking a piss, then we'll just kind of pull back a little bit, I think, on that one, mate. So Chrissy's saying, could we not offer a player plus cash from Madison like Fraser and Lewis or something? Yeah, we could do. I'm not sure whether Rodgers would take them too, mate.
That's the problem. I think
they want 55 million, I heard.
The biggest one that you really had in your locker for them was Dubravka. Yeah. Now, he can't play for them this season.
And he won't go now. I mean, Darlow's gone on loan anyway to Hull, isn't he? So Dubravka isn't going anywhere.
So let me just bring this up.
That's an interesting one by Leroy saying, do you think that the Blades involvement with Saudi will put us ahead in the Berge bid? Maybe.
There's an argument for that. It's just just bring his stats up for, and you might need to blow your screens up with this. So this is FB Ref. This is the season. So this is the first season. So 1920, when actually Sheffield United played very, very well in the Premier League. So this was his first season
under Chris Wilder. League. Yeah.
So in terms of his defensive duties, he did very well. 59th percentile for tackles. You look at the midfield third and the attacking third, he sat in the high percentiles there. So that showed that in terms of like pressing game, he's quite willing to do that. Blocks, interceptions, it's higher than certainly this season, but it will have needed to be. Clearance is one of the big ones, as well as ball recoveries. He sits in about the bottom third, but they're playing in a side that they all worked really, really hard to do that. So that's probably not an unusual stat, that ball recoveries one. But you see the percentage of aerials won. He's winning 68.6 of aerial battles in that season in the Premier League. So he's definitely got the stats to go with it. In terms of his sort of forward sort of thinking, again, he sits sort of mid-range for a lot of those stats. Passing was always going to be low because they didn't have as much of the ball. So that's not so much of an issue, I don't think, in that regard, because it's just the way that Sheffield United played. So the stats are there, I think, to show that he can do that sort of job. And definitely he's that sort of high, he can do that high press. He will work hard. He can, as I said before, he can move with the ball too. and he's decent. He's not so bad in front of goal too. He's scored a few goals over the last 2 seasons, so can give you a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I think for me, I think that we won't see the defensive midfielder come in. We'll maybe see somebody replace Shelby. If we can get Gallagher or something like that, I think that'll happen. I think we've got Joe Linton that can slip back into that midfield anyway. So I think that obviously works really well. And maybe in the summer we'll go big for a defensive midfielder. Maybe is Alvarez from Ajax. Maybe even Mikel Merino from our former player who fucked off over to Spain again. He's made noises about wanting to come back. Apparently, there's a £50 million release clause for him. So maybe it's a player like that potentially that could come back. So I think that position will probably get filled in the summer, I would say, as well as probably a Maddison deal, Mark, as well. What do you think for Maddison? I think we'll go back in the summer and end up getting him third time's a charm.
Possibly, if they really want him, I think the summer's going to be when he comes. I do think. I think that there's a lot of noise about Maddison, and I don't think, and we've seen that with Gordon over the last year. We've obviously seen that with Ashby. The old saying, "There's no smoke without fire." There's an awful lot of noise about James Maddison, and it's not purely fan led. It's not the random transfer websites that come at this come from somewhere. So yeah, I think definitely the summer's the most likely option, and that probably works for Newcastle in terms of the fee too, because he's only a year then from the end of his contract. That 50-60 million will come down.
Absolutely, we'll get him for a knockdown fee. I don't think Leicester will have a brilliant season either. Towards the end, they'll probably finish mid-table. So it'll be one of those that maybe the bigger boys won't come near him either. Then if he's made his mind up to come to Newcastle, then all the better as well, mate. But there was a celebration we're going to have on tonight's What's Going On, mate. It's 1 year ago we signed, quite arguably, a lad who could turn out to be the best Newcastle United midfielder we've had of all time, and that is Mr. Bruno Guimaraes. So happy Brunoversary to you, Mark. I think we've got a little message there. I think having from the great man. Yes. So he says there, 1 year of the best decisions of his life. Thanks to the club and the fans for welcoming me and giving me everything I need to play at my best level. I hope you're able to live more years and write a history of achievements we follow together. And then number 39. I mean, when we signed this lad, Mark, we signed him as a defensive midfielder. We've just been having an argument or a discussion about that. Sorry. The kid come in. Sorry, arguing there. I was thinking about the Twitter spaces. The kid come in. I don't think any of us had any idea he would be as magical as he has been, mate. I mean, have you honestly seen like a better signing out of nowhere for any club in the Premier League kind of in the last 5 years that's as good as this kid, what he's done for us?
Sven Botman, Nick Pope. I mean, I've to be fair, look, when Bruno signed, the definitely brilliant. You've seen how he played in France and stuff, and he looks the part. Didn't expect what came. He was far above what I anticipated when he came in, but he just looks perfect for the way that the Premier League operates. He looks perfect for the way that Eddie Howe wants to play. I mean, he looks perfect. He is perfect for the way that Eddie Howe wants to play. He's just been utterly sensational. He drives the team. It's very, you can tell when he's not there, can't you? Because there is that lack of something, and he epitomizes everything about this Newcastle side, and he is a very, very special player.
I think he just makes everybody else around him play better as well. I think he's that type of a player where, they all raise their game, to kind of get close to anywhere near where Bruno is, and his passion as well. What I love about him, he's very rarely you get these Brazilian players where they have, the quality and the skill and everything, but they also have that little bit of needle about them, that little bit of Sunday League type player about them, and he seems to have a bit of that as well. But then off the pitch, he's this funny, charismatic bloke, and all the team love him as well. I remember watching the Dan Burn Longstaff thing, and they said do an impression of Bruno, and he just said he calls everybody by their full name. Nick Pope, Sean Longstaff. He says never just calls them Sean or Longy, he just calls them by their full name. And when Gordon was getting showed around, I had him and Joe Linton at the table, and he said, "This is the Brazilian table, my friend, the Brazilian table." So he just seems like a proper character, mate. So I think, as Ian said there, I'd love to have another Bruno in, but I don't think you get as lucky as that in the transfer window. But I mean, such a good player. Obviously we're going to come on to the game in a minute, mate. But he is integral, Bruno Guimaraes, isn't he, to where we're going as a club here. The next level and the level above that. I really do think this lad will be the one of the focal points of this side, no matter who we're linked with, and if we're in the Champions League or if we're winning cups or whatever. I honestly just think that the likes of him and Botman and Isak, Pope, Trippier for another couple of years, maybe Ashby after that. These guys are going to be what takes us there, and Bruno's going to be the gem in the crown, mate, isn't he?
Just the thing about those names that you've just read out. If you'd said just over a year ago that the spine of your team was going to be Nick Pope, Sven Botman, Bruno Guimaraes, and Alexander Isak,
you would have been committed.
And let's not forget the age of those players as well. I mean, bar Nick Pope, the max is 24, but Botman 22, Isak's 21. The future for the club now is just unbelievably bright, because you are bringing in players that are all in their early 20s. They've all got bags of time ahead of them. Joe Linton, 26 now.
Yeah.
Joe Willock's 23. The age of that squad is coming down as you sort of move some of these players on. Obviously, Chris Wood has moved on. Shelby moves on. It takes the age away, and they're building, and it's just going to continue. But just that spine, just it's a spine tingling thought, isn't it? Just think, Jesus, you've got that to build on, and then you add the likes of Trippier, the likes of Joe Linton, or even Callum Wilson and Almiron around those players, and you can bring in others, potentially a Gallagher, then a Maddison in the summer, and then it's just. I think that what was the line? We're not here to take. We said
we're not here to take part. We're here to take over.
I think that's coming. And look, it might be a couple of years away, but Jesus, that the signs are there already. With those four through the middle of the park.
Yeah, absolutely. Stu's saying that he knows that Bruno wasn't happy with Isak missing chances at the end of the Southampton game. He's demanding of his teammates. I love that. I think when he hit that through ball to Wilson, he didn't go for it. You can see him go like, come on, like as if, I've given you the ball, do what you're meant to do, kind of a thing. But he does it with such a swagger and a kind of confidence about him, and because he's so good, I don't think the players would argue back with him. You know what I mean? It'd be different if someone like Robbie Savage was fucking telling you to run for the ball. You'd have a piss off. But someone like Bruno Guimaraes, who's just so good.
He's a leader, isn't he?
He's a total leader. But what I love as well, and we had this for years with Shearer, if you remember, everyone used to get sick of Andy Gray kissing Shearer's arse. But all the commentators just, they can't stop salivating over Bruno every game, every touch, every little stud roll. Every time he flies in for a tackle, you can hear them purring about him. And it's really nice to have that as a Newcastle fan, for a long time we've had quite mediocre players, so it's absolutely class to have a player of that quality, and long may it continue. Let's hope we add another 2 or 3 at his level, mate, which would be absolutely stunning. So just to end tonight's show, mate, hands up, who's nervous for tomorrow? I'll put mine up. I'm going to the game. Obviously, I'm buzzing about that. PK's managed to score me a ticket. I know you're livid you're not going, but it's going to be the atmosphere. It's just, I don't even know if I could describe what the atmosphere will be like. I think, I mentioned this on the preview that they put up this morning that, I think the city will be buzzing probably from about 5 onwards. I think people will be finishing work early, going straight to the pub, a couple of pints in them, get to the ground. Everyone's bringing the scarves again to wave them. The atmosphere will be unbelievable. Anthony Gordon's already said he's going to be at the game, and imagine what that kid will feel in that ground, with that atmosphere, coming out on the pitch, probably being introduced to the crowd, because I'm sure they'll do that for him. He's going to buzz off that, isn't he? And he'll be jumping for getting a chance against West Ham on Saturday. But just, I mean, we touched on the preview earlier on today, a couple of hands up there. Jack's nervous, Roger's nervous, but just on the game itself, Mark. Firstly, for you, any changes? I went for one big change, didn't I? Any changes for you?
I think I'd agree. I guess if it's me picking the team, obviously it's not. That's probably a good thing. No, it definitely is a good thing. Isak would come in for me. I do think that Eddie Howe will stick with the side that started. I think he'll play Wilson or start Wilson again and have that explosiveness off the bench if he needs it. But I think given how Isak has played the last 2 times he's come on, I think he in my head he deserves the start. I think Wilson just needs to come out of the firing line a little bit in that regard. He's been short of chances and short of form, I guess. He's worked hard, but he's not had the chances. He's not been created the chances to be able to put them away. Whereas I think just Isak gives you something totally different in terms of a striker. We've seen that. We saw that last week. The way that he takes on Gallagher down that right-hand side, bursts into the box to play the ball across for Joe Linton. He does give you something exciting at that point. I just think he's probably done enough to justify a start now.
Yeah, absolutely. Ash is the same as you, mate. Isak and Maxi for him, but he thinks it won't happen. Gibbo says Isak to start, only change. I would say Stu just remind us the Gallagher is eligible to play, which I know he is. Ian is saying that Isak should play as he's earned it. Love Wilson, but he's not been himself. Looks well off the pace. I definitely agree with that one, Ian. Angry Noob Gamer is saying it's going to be a hard-fought match. I do agree with that. I think I said that in the preview. We won't have it all our own way, but I think I agree with what you said there, Mark, is that Alexander Isak has, for me, shown the sharpness in the games that he's had. Every single game he's looked sharper and sharper. When he come on against Southampton, that turn, that burst was just like, wow. Like, he's almost getting to where he needs to be. And he's had a full week's training as well. So Eddie would have seen him in training. And if he's been electric in training, I think Eddie might be thinking this could be one for us to put in from the start, because we need to get ahead in this game early. If we get the first goal, that place is going to absolutely ignite. The roof is going to come off that building. And the Southampton fans and players will not be able to get back into that game. If we get our first goal, the atmosphere in there will be just party central. The players will feel it. They'll buzz off that. And I think we'll be confident in the game. But I think that, I think it'll be cagier than that anyway. But I think playing Isak gives you that opportunity. If you play Wilson, I think he does look off the pace, as Ian says. And if it's a bit cagey for the first 10, 15 minutes, the crowd might just start to get a little bit quiet, Mark. That's what worries me.
Maybe. It's the biggest game at St James's Park in
it is
donkeys, and I just think that the crowd is going to be well up for it. I think we touched on it the weekend. You walk Gordon out in front of them first before the game, it's going to go nuts. I think the obviously the best thing for Newcastle is to get ahead early, but I think that just opens the game up then, because then Southampton have to come searching for a goal. They can keep it tight the longer it goes on and nick one, and then it gets to potentially then goes through into sort of penalties or whatever.
Yeah.
But if Newcastle get the early goal, Southampton have to come out, and then Newcastle can break. They can use that counter attack well. We saw how well they did particularly down the left hand side in the early sort of exchanges last week, where Joe Willock was getting away down that left hand side time and time again. If they can open that up again, that could be fun. In front of the Gallagher tomorrow, especially. But yeah, I think it'll be cagey. I do think there's going to be an element of not wanting to lose it from both sides.
Yeah.
But I think if Newcastle come out with that same intensity that they've come out with in the previous games, certainly the first part of the Leicester game where they missed those early chances, against Southampton last week where they missed sort of early chances, I think they'll take one. And if they take one, they might get 2, 3, 4 at that point, because I think they can then take the game away from Southampton as the Saints try and get themselves back into it.
Yeah, I think we've got better quality in that regard, so I think we could definitely do that. Jackson, you'd like to see Maxi come on about the hour mark, run at tired defenders. I do agree with that. Leroy saying, do we think Southampton make any changes? from their team against Blackpool, 100%, because they rested pretty much all of their players.
To be fair, I do like Roger's response to that comment. So.
I don't care, Leroy. And how will Adam Armstrong be feeling, Stuart? Well, he'd probably be, as a Newcastle fan, probably loving the atmosphere, but as a professional player, he'll want to win it for Southampton. And do you know what? He looked dangerous as well when he come on. I thought in the first leg he looked really dangerous. So he offers him something off the bench, which we would have to be careful about ourselves, about running tired legs as well. I do like Jack's comment there. Maybe we'll see Murphy waving their players off again, probably from the bench, I'd imagine, mate. And Maggot is saying get Kone in terms of the defensive midfielder. I think somebody did ask us, Mark, do we think we'll sign a midfielder tomorrow? Here we go. It was Tiger Studios. Do we think we'll sign a central midfielder tomorrow? Just to end on that one, a little bit of transfer news again. What's your gut feeling that, Mark? Mine is I think Conor Gallagher on loan. I can see that happening.
I think potentially at most, I think you're looking at a loan deal now. I don't think you'd see anything permanent. I think it'll be a case of somebody to come in and cover the gap that Shelvey has left. However, I do agree with the comment I saw earlier on about, if Shelvey goes, you have to fill that space. They've played without him all season. I mean, he's played less than 2 games in terms of minutes this season.
Yeah, true.
It's not like he's been an integral part of the squad.
I think it's the squad depth, though, isn't it? It's the depth to have that as an option. I think. This is
the problem, because all of a sudden, if you pick up an injury to Sean Longstaff, for example, there's not another player that comes into that particular side of things.
Anderson's not really stepped up enough, has he? I think if Anderson had stepped up, you wouldn't have been as worried. I think.
No, I think you probably see Joe Linton and Willock playing alongside Bruno in that sort of regard. And then you're looking at the likes of Maxi coming back into play further forward. I do think you probably look at one more in a loan deal through to this one with the potential to then become permanent. And Gallagher probably fits that mold better than most, because I think that's the deal that Chelsea probably don't want to do, especially not to Newcastle, but they're probably forced a little bit in terms of where they're going to be heading in terms of finances.
No, I get that. Dan's just saying there, he just hopes if it's still 1-0 at halftime, we don't sit back. Honestly, any win would be awesome. And he says, greetings from America. Brilliant, Dan. Greetings from you as well, mate. Thanks for tuning in all the way from over in the States. No idea what the time is there, mate, but I'm sure it's not the same time as it is here. Ian is saying, we all need to raise the roof tomorrow. Make it a fucking cauldron of atmosphere. Absolutely, mate. Couldn't agree more. Jordy Jack thinks we'll get Madison tomorrow. Don't know why. Mate, if we do, we will send you one of these, mate, if we get Madison tomorrow. You just DM us and we'll send you one of these. That would make my day. What you saying, Mark?
I was going to say, I genuinely can't see that happening. I mean, for Newcastle's sake, it would be an amazing one, but I just can't see that going through tomorrow now.
So for you, Jordy Jack, if you get that right, Mark sends you one of these, and on the back of it just says, "I'm sorry, Jordy Jack, you were right." From Mark, that's what it will say on the cup, mate. Jordan is saying he hopes Isaac starts tomorrow as well. Absolutely. Oh, Dan saying at 6 p.m. That's not too bad then, mate. But you're right outside New York City. Love it, mate. Absolutely love it. Love the fact that you're watching us lot talking about Newcastle in the Big Apple, mate. So I hope you have a fantastic time. And Ian said he thinks it will get Madison, so does his wife. Someone wants a couple of cups. That's what he's after. He's after a couple of cups. But no, mate, it's going to be an unbelievable game tomorrow. We're going to try to do a post-match, Mark, aren't we? If I get back from the ground in one piece in time, because I've got to be up early in the morning in my car, so I won't be lashing it up with the boys, unfortunately, in their locals as they normally do. But we'll try and jump on and do a bit of a post-match tomorrow, everybody. But that's us all wrapped up for tonight. So thank you so much to everybody who jumped in the comments. We always love having you guys here. It really helps it flow. It really helps us, have a good crack with you as well. And we even talked over an hour tonight, Mark. We try to keep it under an hour normally, but hey, we've gone over. So what can we say? But as I mentioned at the start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. If you're new to the channel, we'd love to have you on board. And if you can, smash a like on the video for us. It really helps get it around YouTube. And me and Mark are going to try to get some sleep before the biggest game in Newcastle United's, well, probably the last 25, 30 years, probably, Mark, isn't it?
What is it? Yeah, so last semi-final was 17 years ago, 18 years ago now. I'm at the top of my head, I think it's 17 years since the last one. And And this is quite, like I said before, it's probably the biggest game at St James's Park in a couple of decades, isn't it? Really, when you think about it, it's what this means to this journey.
Absolutely.
And as a first step, really as a first step in that role, I guess nobody really expected to be at this point, this terms in where you are in the league, where you are in the cup competition, a step from Wembley in the Champions League spaces. It's all heading in the right direction. This just is a huge platform to go off now.
Superb. Longest goodbye ever, but well said. Well said. So that's us all done, guys. Keep supporting our team, McCoy United. We'll hopefully be back tomorrow. Away the lads. Let's get that win tomorrow and get to Wembley, and we'll catch you later. Cheers, everyone.
Take care, guys.